Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about the freshly revealed new league for Path of Exile 2 0.2 Dawn of the Hunt. Now, in the last 3 months, a lot of us have been waiting for whatever PoE 2 is going to push out next, and the patch is now going to be there. And I came in with pretty low expectations. After I saw PoE 2 for the first time, I definitely saw a lot of struggles that probably needed to be ironed out over probably a year, maybe longer. But I gotta say, they're taking a lot of risks and opportunities to do new stuff, and they're shaking up endgame quite a bit. And I don't want to talk about everything that happened in that video. I want to talk about a very specific quote.
People should really be going in with the expectation that like nothing they knew about how the game was balanced before is the same. Just forget everything you know. Like, you know, exactly. Everyone who's finding builds, like do it again. Like you are going to find more shit that is like outrageously broken again, but it is not going to be the same shit that was broken before.
Now, currently we don't have any patch notes, so we don't know exactly what's going to happen. We have the new ascendancies, right? We have everything they revealed in this 40-minute video, but I want to talk about the Q&A a little bit more because a lot of people checked out. The first hour of the Q&A was very long-winded and just a lot of talk about ifs and maybes and nothing really concrete. But I'm here to tell you there's actually a lot of interesting facts sprinkled in there, and especially towards the ends. I wrote down 17 points here that like I watched it for a second time, and a lot of those I missed on the first watch as well, so I'm gonna throw those out right now. And the first one is forget everything you know, as you just heard, which means the patch notes are gonna be huge most likely. I will follow this up with the number 2, no skill will have the same damage as before, I quote. That means that they have not just done a balance pass on skills that are too strong, but also on skills that are not strong enough. They also talk a lot about crossbows and how they want to get up crossbows, which is very much my wheelhouse. Very happy about that. But what this means to me is more than nerfs, the skills I maybe wasn't able to play yet or try out yet because they aren't competitive with the rest might now be. And even if they won't do it right on the first balance pass, this to me means that they care and they're going to push stuff up until it is at least semi-viable. Number 3, and this one's pretty funny, it is Jonathan getting asked what he thinks an expectation for a build should be, and he talks about 50,000 DPS in endgame, up to 500 DPS, and then on top of that, he knows there will be a few outliers that they will probably have to adjust, kind of insinuating that everything above 500,000 DPS would somehow get adjusted. And this makes me a little bit nervous because this is not tooltip DPS, right? This is actually PoB damage with like all the deductions of debuffs and whatnot. So 500,000, I'm not really sure. That's usually what you have to reach very early on for a endgame boss to only have 50,000. Like, you're gonna be there for like 10 minutes at Uber bosses. So either we're gonna see patch notes that are brutal to basically every single archetype, like to a point where I'm not even sure. Like, I'm not sure how you could not get to 500,000, like more than 500,000 damage. I'm not really sure. I think it was just kind of like a miscalculation in terms of where he's at, or he's talking about more casual players. And then we have number 4, which is that pinnacle bosses will start out at a half HP in some of the very early encounters, scaling up to what HP they usually have, which is pretty damn good. It especially means that Atlas passives for certain mechanics will be easier to unlock. Number 5, also boss related. All the boss specific unique items can now drop from all tiers. However, the lower tiers will have a very low percentage, which I think is a good change because you can get lucky, maybe sometimes have hype lucky random moments. Number 6, we still will not get any ascendancy respecs. And Mark says that this is kind of like his baby. He really wants your characters to kind of have a identity, and that respecting that would be a problem, and he knows that's an unpopular opinion. It seems to even be an unpopular opinion within GTG, but he's kind of holding out on that. I'm sure this will change over time. We're just gonna wait until then, but I think that certainly in a game that takes so long to re-level, I'm not 100% sure this can really hold through, but he also says that he's up for it maybe at some point, and that if it happens, there's going to be like a gauntlet that you have to complete first in order to respec. Number 7, you cannot drop the waystones that are lower than the ones you're running anymore, which is really nice to hear. That means that sustain is going to be less of an issue. I personally never really felt it to be an issue, but well, the more the merrier. Fact number 8, in every ritual inventory, there will be at least 1 omen. Now, most of the time that's going to be a shit omen, but they talk about it as if it's a pretty big deal. And what I've heard from people who are farming rituals, that is at least a pretty nice start. They also talk about a 2.5 times multiplier for omens, although I don't know if this is supposed to be the 2.5 multiplier or if that's separate on top of the 1 omen guaranteed. I'm not 100% sure on that. Maybe somebody in the comment knows, but in general, it's a nice touch. Nice start. Number 9, and I quote, "We want combos to still be as good in endgame as they are in early game." Honestly, this is kind of referring to Huntress and all these combos of like jumping in, doing the whirl attack, jumping out. Yeah, it's not going to happen. I mean, there's a lot of things in life that I would also like to do, but sometimes you just have to be realistic about stuff. Yeah, nobody's doing these weird combos against white packs in endgame. I don't know. Like, they have never really made skills to be at a power level where you actually want to press them. Most of the time, you're just wasting your time. It's uncomfortable. There's very little things that you actually want to do, and those are mostly debuff related, like Eye of Winter or Bone Storm, but those are just outliers and extremely strong. I also want to highlight that the current skill system with support gems doesn't really want you to use several skills, or at least it doesn't incentivize you, because there are some supports that are so much stronger than others. If you use those on one skill, you're probably not going to use another skill for damage, because that skill would have inherently worse supports because you can only use them once. So I don't really know how to fix this, because I kind of like the support system right now. You kind of have to think about where you put what support. But at the end of the day, if you want to have more than one damaging skill and not just one damaging skill and like 3 or 4 debuffs or buffs, then this is not the way. Number 10, we have a small comment about Breach getting nerfed, which is basically Mark saying, Breach spawned too many monsters. That's it. I mean, most of us saw it coming, but yeah. Number 11, a lot of people were thinking about how they're going to nerf Heralds, and I don't have the quote here, but he said there's no more Heralds chaining, which means they can't feed each other anymore in terms of ailments and whatnot. So we're not going to see explosion chains anymore, which is probably good riddance. There's also a few new explodey effects, and probably just going to have to work a little bit harder to get extra clear. Number 12, Mark was talking about how they can nerf top-end builds while not nerfing lower-end builds, and he talked about shock scaling nerfs, in particular about Lightning Conduit and cast on shock, kind of that archetype. I don't know exactly what that is going to be, but an interesting insight. Number 13, just quick confirmation that Spark and attribute stacking will get nerfed, which isn't very surprising to anybody. For attribute stacking, he said, and I quote, attribute stacking, get out of here. And for Spark, he said, so many projectiles, so bye-bye. Number 14, they have done a balance pass on every single Ascendancy, which I'm very glad to hear, because a lot of the Ascendancies just weren't really up to par. And the next 2 points, number 15, for example, is Pathfinder has 2 extra notables and some other changes. So they're understanding that some of the Ascendancies just don't really have a use case. There's outliers like, for example, Stormweaver or Deadeye, which just have a lot of good and efficient points, especially Stormweaver, which you could literally take any 2 random points away and you would still have a good Ascendancy. But no, once again, we don't have this theme of they're just going to nerf the outliers. They're also aware and they're going to balance pass on the less played ones. Number 16, Chronomancer will get an extra notable, and I quote, it has too much utility and it will be less niche, which is good to hear. They have a lot of different abilities that are, yeah, pretty much the definition of niche, and that extra notable. I always said this, I really like the recoup nodes on Chronomancer. I don't really think they have any use right now, but there's just, yeah, it's just too fringe and too weird, but well, I'm looking forward to it at least. And number 18, which I forgot, I actually have 18, the shrines in the campaign soon, which I don't know if that's really anything special. The only thing I can think about here is maybe you get a lucky shrine before a hard boss, which could make it a lot easier. And that was about everything I could get out of the Q&A. There was a lot of talking about Huntress, how they want it to work and whatnot. Personally, I don't think it will be working like they think. Nobody will parry. I don't think anybody will combo in endgame. I don't know. It just never works. It's nice to know it's there, I guess. And I'm sure some people will like the roleplay, but before I see the numbers, I really won't commit to that. In general, they have revealed a lot of new Ascendancies. I really like them. I'm going to look over them. Might make a video about that soon. But yeah, until then, really hoping for the patch notes soon, hopefully Monday. And I'll keep you guys posted on that. And since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.